going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Stowers Does It All. On this episode, I'm actually going to be running a half marathon. Now, don't get me wrong, we're still in the middle of our quarantine, aka shelter in place, so I'm not able to actually go somewhere and do an actual half marathon. So to make up for it, I will actually be doing my half marathon virtually through something called Medal Dash. So right now it's about 6:45 in the morning. I'm terribly congested. I'm trying to make sure that I beat some of that morning heat, because even though it's only about 62 degrees right now, I checked the weather and it's going to be increasing by about 10 degrees by the time it hits noon. So without further ado, let's get this thing started. Okay, so next thing I want to do is talk about some of the most important things to remember before you go on your run. Number one, make sure that you guys have eaten something. You're gonna want to make sure that when you wake up, you have some sort of fuel for your run. So what I have here, I have a banana and I also have some toast with a generous amount of cream cheese. This is gonna serve as like my carbs, my source of sugar during the run. It's gonna help me get that energy that I'm gonna need to run those 13.1 miles, because you don't wanna run out of energy in the middle of all this, especially when you've been dedicating this time to this run. So we have our toast, which serves as our carbohydrates, which is the body's energy fuel throughout the run. The cream cheese, just a little bit of fat to help you out, get that distance in. And then we have our banana, which is going to be our powerhouse food throughout this run. This serves as our source of sugar. It also serves as our source of vitamin B6 and our potassium, which are electrolytes, which are gonna help us out throughout the run and also help us prevent our cramping. Not to mention, they're both delicious. Now, this does not mean stuff yourself silly. Once you've had something to eat, your body's response is to poop. And if you're on a run that's 13.1 miles long, the last thing you want to have to do is poop. Number two, stay hydrated. Water is essential to making sure that your body functions the way that it needs to. And if it doesn't have enough water, then some of those major things that it does, it's not going to be able to complete those tasks. So it's very important to make sure that you guys have your water, because that is your body's main way of combining things and transporting things to the rest of your body. Number three, have some sort of nutrients for these long distance runs. If you're doing a short distance run, maybe a 5K or so, this one's really not that necessary, but for things like a half marathon, you want to make sure that you have your nutrients and that you're staying hydrated throughout. And one of the ways that I do that is through this thing called honey stinger gel. I got some of these when I did my first run across the Golden Gate Bridge. It was called the Golden Gate Half Marathon. I did that with my friend Paulo. Throughout the run, there were people stationed that were kind of handing these things out. And at first I didn't really know what it was until I actually had one. So this is a way to give your body like a little bit of a boost if it's running out of some of the sugars or carbs that it needs to finish out that race. Now, for the most part, a lot of these are organic. So this one's made with organic honey. And I'm telling you, the moment that I ripped this thing off and I just took that in, I just felt that in like 30 seconds and I was ready to go. Next, and this one probably should have been number one or two, is to stretch.
Let's start with a stretch.
Get a good stretch in. I cannot stress how important that is. Not getting a good stretch before you run means that you're going into the race cold. You have to make sure that you're stretching out your quads, your calves, your hamstrings, and also I like to stretch out my arms, because you don't think about it, but that swinging motion, that can really tire you guys out. So getting that muscle stretched out, making sure that you guys are good in that fashion too. Next thing would be to have some sort of eye protection if you're running out in the sun. That one's kind of supplementary. You don't really need to have that, but it's always nice to have. So you may be asking, why am I doing this run in the first place? And the run actually is called the #Crush Corona Run. And you can choose between a 5K, 10K, a half marathon, or a full marathon. I'm not crazy, so I'm doing a half marathon. Now, the purpose of it is that all the money that they actually receive from this go towards the first responders and the essential workers during this pandemic. And so far, at the time of this video, they've raised roughly $15,000 that go towards those first responders. So thank you for everyone at Medal Dash for making this happen, because I'm really excited to get out there and run, but I feel like I'm doing it for a purpose. They send this to you. This is going to serve as my racing bib, which you'll see in some of the videos that I'll be wearing. I'm number 1111. Last but not least, one thing I always make sure of before I go is that I have a good playlist. Some people have different earpieces that they use. Honestly, I just like this one because it's easier to use for me and it syncs up with my Siri. I always build a good playlist before I go to make sure that it is at least the length of my run so it doesn't run out in the middle of it. And the playlist that I like to choose is something that always has some sort of high beats per minute, something that'll keep me going because the music honestly motivates me a lot. So what's your playlist? What kind of music do you run to? Leave a message in the comments below. Maybe I might add something that you listen to on my playlist and I might run to it also. If you guys like to see what I specifically like to run to, I'll be adding my Spotify playlist in the description down below so you guys can also run with my music too. All right, with all that being said, let's get into it. I have not run this distance since November and I was about 10 pounds lighter then.
Pre-jig.
Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, Lord.
Ready? Go!
So I'm coming up on 3 miles right now, which is a little less than a quarter of the way there to 13.1 miles. Still got a while to go. Stay tuned. So we're about 4 miles in. Gravel, if you've never run on it, will wear you out. We're about to kick it back up right now. Got my honey stinger. Let's do it. A little bit under the halfway point. I'm actually at about what would be a 10K right now. So about 6 miles, a little bit of change. Took a different route, but we're gonna get there. So we're about 3/4 of the way there now. 3.5 more miles to go. And we're done. Almost 11 miles now. And I'm starting to feel a little bit winded. Pain right here under the thoracic cage right next to my kidneys. My toes literally feel like mashed potatoes. Hopefully when I get home, I can get some new shoes because these Run Disney New Balance shoes have been holding me down for a while. So just checking in, time to get started. That didn't work out.
Okay guys, so that's it. Finished the half marathon, aka 13.1 miles, and got my medal, finished it up. But I am very, very tired now, and my toes feel like mashed potatoes. My good old shoes, my Run Disney New Balances, I think finally need to be retired. It's been about 400 miles with those guys, but I think it's finally time to look at some Hakas or some Adidas. I want to give a big thank you to everyone on Instagram that was giving your love and support. I was getting your updates on my watch as I was running, and that really helped motivate me to finish up the run. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm sweaty, and I think I'm going to call it a day. So till the next time, Stowers out.